Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. This is just exciting to see all of your faces from all over California, and we're excited about this topic, so we're just going to go ahead and get started here. This is our 20th Zoom chat that we've had since April, and we've covered a lot of different topics, and this month we are focusing on employment. My name is Sonia Bingaman, and I am the Regional Manager of the State Council on Developmental Disabilities Sacramento Regional Office. We cover the 10 counties around Sacramento and Sacramento, Yolo, Yuba, Sutter, Colusa, Nevada, Placer, Alpine, Sierra, and El Dorado counties. And we have offices all around the state, so many of you learned about this training from your local regional office from the State Council. So welcome to this training. I'd also like to introduce Kathy Bryan, who is staff in our office. Kathy, can you introduce yourself?
Hello all. Hey, nice to have you here today. My name is Kathy Bryan, and I'm the Community Program Specialist too in the office. Sonia and I work together. There's just two of us. And I'm going to be handling the chat today. So if you have questions that you want to put in the chat, or if you want to ask them out loud, that's fine, but I'll be managing that and hopefully help you out. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kathy. Just to remind folks that there is, if they click on the participant button, they can then raise their hand, and that will show a green hand by their name, so we know you have a question. And you're also just welcome to type a question in there. Kathy will monitor that and help to either call on you or read your question for you. The State Council on Developmental Disabilities is established by state and federal law as an independent state agency to ensure that people with developmental disabilities and their families receive the supports that they need. Through advocacy, capacity building, and systemic change, SCDD works to achieve a consumer and family-based system of individualized supports and services. I know you're all busy, so I thank you all for joining us today for our weekly chats on special needs families, new policies and regulations, and community supports and programs. Throughout the training today, I will be launching a couple polls to get your input and also to learn how you think the training went. We're recording this session and it will be posted onto YouTube, and then we will link it to Facebook. I will also email it out, the link to all of you by tomorrow. We encourage you to share the link with others who missed the training. This month, we've partnered with Alta California Regional Center to celebrate employment. We're beginning a 4-week series focused on employment supports for people with developmental disabilities, since October is National Employment of People with Disabilities Month. So we decided to celebrate with having 4 trainings, actually 3 trainings and a celebration. So today we're going to be focusing on regional center services and supports for employment, employment first legislation, and competitive integrated employment. On October 13th, we will have another session where we have Department of Rehabilitation and their student services, and also career exploration supports. So we hope you'll join us next Tuesday. October 20th, we'll focus on efforts to reach out and inform businesses about hiring people with disabilities and what supports there are for the businesses. We will also discuss wage issues and how that affects SSI benefits and general benefits counseling. And I think I see Steve Reuter there, and he will be our special guest. He's waving, our special guest on the 20th. And finally, on October 27th, we'll have a panel of individuals, a parent and job developers and job coaches share about work experiences, challenges, and successes, and how they adapted their jobs during COVID. We hope you'll join us for this celebration and hear their stories. Today, we welcome Cindy Lee, Employment Services Specialist with the Alta California Regional Center. Cindy's not only our guest today, but she's also partnering with us to organize this series of trainings this month, so you'll see her each week. Thank you for your time, Cindy. So we really structured these trainings to be for individuals who receive services from the Regional Center as well as their family members. And we know we have a mixture of folks in our audience today, but we want to make sure that everything we say is as clear as possible and understandable for all of us. So we're going to do our best to not use acronyms or abbreviations or words that are difficult for any of us to understand. So please, if we ever do that, just unmute and say, hey, what does that mean? Or put a comment in the chat, or tell us to slow down, or whatever we need to do to make this so that everyone can understand. Some of the words are things that some of us use all the time and we forget that they're new to other people. So please just feel free to say, hey, slow down. And please don't use that acronym. We don't know what it means. So if we were in a room, we could have a quarter jar or a nickel jar, and we are not. So please just stop us and let us know to explain any terms that I use or Cindy uses, or if someone asks a question, also try to use plain language if possible. So without further ado, I want to introduce Cindy and then let her go ahead and introduce herself. Thank you, Cindy.
Great. Thank you so much, Sonia. Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to see so many people have joined us in celebrating National Disability Awareness Month. This is, as Sonia mentioned, the first floor of Zoom chat series that Alta is proud to collaborate with the State Council on Developmental Disabilities on. Again, my name is Cindy Lay. I am the Client Employment Specialist at Alta California Regional Center. We are one of the 21 nonprofit regional centers in California. We cover 10 counties, very similar to State Council, from Sacramento to Colusa to Alpine, Sierra, and all the counties in between. We serve individuals who are eligible for our services based on developmental disability, such as intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and autism. We also serve individuals with other substantially disabling conditions closely related to intellectual disability, or which requires a treatment similar to the treatment required by persons with an intellectual disability. So my role as the Client Employment Specialist at Alta is development and quality assurance for employment programs. So a little bit about my background. I started with the Regional Center about 15 years ago. I was at Valley Mountain Regional Center for 10 years. And while at Valley Mountain, my role was an SC, a service coordinator, for 7 years, and a community services liaison, focusing on quality assurance for 3 years. I have 2 children, a son in college and a daughter who is now a senior in high school. So now that you know a little bit about me, I'd like to know a little bit about you and who you are. So please tell me who you are by completing the poll question. Sonia, would you like to launch that?
Okay, I've launched the poll. It says, please tell us which option best describes who you are. First option is self-advocate, student, client of the Regional Center, or person with a disability. Second option is family member or a care provider. Third option is service provider, vendor, direct care staff. And the fourth option is community member, advocate, or other. If you can't do it in the poll, you're welcome to do it in the comments section. Oh, there's not a multi-option. You just have to pick the one that best describes you for today. I'm sure many of you can be in many of these categories. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and, nope, wait a couple more seconds. Pretend like it's Halloween and you have to be one person for Halloween. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end the polling. And I'll share the results. There you go. Can you see that, Cindy?
Yes, I can. So it looks like we have 57% service provider, vendor, direct care staff. We have 16% of you who are self-advocate, a student, client of the Regional Center, or a person with a disability. We have 15% who is a family member or a care provider. And we have 12% who is community member, an advocate, or other. So welcome all. Okay, so Sonia, why don't we go ahead and get started? Can you go ahead and launch the next question? Okay, so the next launch question that I would like to ask you is, have you ever heard of the Employment First policy?
We have three options. One is yes, one is no, and one is not sure. And someone says they can click multiples, and I'm sure you could. I'm sure some days we think we understand it and some days we don't. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results.
Okay, so it looks like 38% of the people have heard about the Employment First policy. 35% of the people have not heard about it, and 26% is not sure. So let me go ahead and start the discussion by explaining what the Employment First policy is and what it means for a person with a disability being served by the Regional Center. So Alta adopted a board policy that acknowledges and it supports the value of work in integrated community settings. Alta gives the highest priority to promoting opportunities for integrated and competitive employment for clients, regardless of the severity of their disabilities. So with this said, Alta shall first honor and respect the rights of clients to make informed choices when considering options of integrated competitive employment. So with this said, Alta will do a few things. The first is that Alta shall consider employment as the primary consideration when the individual expresses an interest in working and who is of working age. Second, Alta shall identify community resources available to assist the individual in reaching their goal. Some examples could include working with Department of Rehabilitation, local education agencies, and America's Job Centers. Third, Alta shall develop relationships and partnerships with community-based businesses and industry to foster and increase CIE. Some of the collaborative efforts that I have participated in have been through the Business Advisory Council, the Job Development Network meetings that we host every single month, and also collaboration with State Council on delivering some of the presentations regarding competitive integrated employment. So fourth, Alta shall provide training and education to clients, staff, management to the value of employment. And we're going to talk about a couple of the programs that Alta implemented a few years back, such as the paid internship program and CIE. And finally, Alta shall encourage efforts by service providers to increase CIE for clients to serve. So that means that any service providers who's interested in exploring options to add paid internship or CIE to the vendorization is more than welcome to do so. So at this point, I'd like to ask if anybody have any questions regarding the Employment First policy.
So we do have the question, what is CIE? We're going to get there in just a second, and I apologize in advance that Cindy is using the word CIE a lot. So let's just talk through a little bit on employment first, and then we're going to delve deeper into what CIE is and try to not use the acronym anymore. But thank you,
Okay,
Deborah,
yeah,
for calling us on that. Yeah.
I broke the first rule that we have
know.
today, not to use acronyms.
That's okay. So, so Employment First is a policy. Is it a program? Is it a place? Is it somewhere that you can refer me to? Tell me a little bit more in plain language if you're a family member or a self-advocate or an individual getting services from the Regional Center. How does Employment First really affect you?
This is Rick Hodgkins. I actually served on the Employment First committee for 3 years. I was appointed by one of the former chairs of the DDSCAC because I served on that committee for 6 years. How the Employment First policy affects me is I prefer competitive integrated employment over segregated employment.
And you were involved with that process, right, Rick? of making it a law.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being involved. And that's an important lesson that most laws, pretty much all laws, have people behind them who are advocating for them and working hard. So thank you for being involved.
You're welcome.
Did anyone else have any questions about Employment First policy for Cindy?
It looks like we might have something from Lisa Cooley in the chat.
I just defined what CIE is for whoever was in the chat.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, Cindy, let's go on to talk a little more in depth about what competitive integrated employment is. Like Lisa helped us understand what the words mean, but what does it actually mean?
So Sonia, that is a very good question. So when we talk about competitive integrated employment, what we look at are the wages, the integration aspect, and benefits and opportunities for advancement for individuals with disabilities compared to those without a disability. So when we talk about wages, we look at the consistent wages with the local and state prevailing wages. So for example, right now in Sacramento, the minimum wage for an entry-level job is $13 per hour. We would expect that any clients going into an entry-level job would receive the same wage. So here's an example. If Jane Doe is a person without a disability starting as a cashier at $13 per hour, we would expect that John Doe, who is a person with a disability, to receive the same wage since they will be doing the same job tasks. So after 6 months, if Jane Doe receives a wage increase for positive work performance, and John Doe also receives the same positive assessment, we would expect that John Doe will also receive wage increase. So this is what we mean when we say that they are offered the same opportunities for advancement. And as you can see here, the point is whatever someone without a disability receives, we would expect the same for someone with a disability. We would expect that John Doe, who is also integrated with the rest of his coworkers, meaning that he's working alongside them and not separated from them. And we would expect John Doe to be taking the same breaks and lunches in the same area as his coworkers and have the same opportunities to interact with them as colleagues. And in a year, if an opportunity opens up for a management position, we would expect that both John and Jane Doe will have the same opportunity to apply for the promotion.
So if a client of the Regional Center is interested in a job, what should they do?
Sonia, the first step would be to reach out to the service coordinator so that options can be explored and to get this process started, because we have several options through the Regional Center, which I will be discussing later in the chat. But the first step would be to reach out to the service coordinator and have a planning team meeting.
Are there any questions about competitive integrated employment and how to follow up if you're interested in getting a job? Okay, let's move on to the next question, Cindy. What services and supports are available for people with disabilities to obtain a job?
Yes, I've been so excited to talk about this. These are like the two programs that, I live and I breathe by. So Alta offers supports for individuals to transition into a job by implementing the paid internship program and the CIE, which stands for Competitive Integrated Employment Program. So how the paid internship work is that Alta will cover the client's wages and any employer-related costs during the internship, as long as the costs do not exceed $10,400 per internship year. So the goal of the paid internship program is for the individuals to be hired on directly by the place where they intern, or use the skill sets to be hired somewhere else in the same field of career interest. The paid internship program can also help individuals set up to have their own businesses where they manage and oversee the operation of their businesses. So there is no stipulation on the number of hours the intern must work or the number of internships that they have to participate in, as long as they don't exceed the 10,400 per internship year. And with that, Alta also has a program where we incentivize service providers to help increase competitive integrated employment for the clients that they serve. So what this means is that any providers that successfully helps a client obtain a job in the community that meets the criteria for competitive integrated employment and supports them so that they pass certain milestones will receive incentive payment of 30 days is $1,000, 6 months is $1,250, and after 12 months it's $1,500. Clients of the Regional Center can access the paid internship program or any employment that's integrated in the community and receive supports from the service providers to retain their employment. And the supports could come from many different ways, and it could include job development. It could be direct or remote job coaching, either on the job or off the job site. Also can include community-based training and adaptive functional and social skills necessary to ensure job adjustment and retention. Advocacy on behalf of the client to resolve any issues affecting the client's work or other ongoing services as identified by the client and the planning team for the retention of the job. And the services can be provided via supported employment or tailored day services. Some of the ways that Alta continues to support our clients in accessing competitive integrated employment is in developing programs and services to meet the needs of our clients. And it is very important for us to hear from you, because this is how we develop our request for proposal process. And this process is continuously posted on our website with updates on the needs that the Regional Center has based on input from our clients and from the families. The needs assessment is a result of a discussion with the planning team that the service coordinator would have with the clients and the planning team. And with that information, the Community Services and Support Department would develop the RFP, which is stands for the Request for Proposal. And we post this information on our website and try to engage the service provider, either existing or new, to become a vendor of the Regional Center to develop programs consistent with the needs. Some of the programs that the Regional Center recently developed included community integrated training programs for clients with behavioral challenges with a focus on employment. We also have in the process of developing supported employment programs, day programs with an emphasis on employment, as well as micro enterprise to assist clients with an interest in starting their own business. Currently, we have service providers who are going through the process to revamp their program design to meet the integrity of competitive integrated employment. We are also following guidance from Work and Innovation and Opportunity Act on placements in sub-minimum wage settings. And as you may or may not be aware, this regulation was adopted in July of 2016 and requires anyone 24 and under to first go through the career counseling and information and referral process before they can be placed in sub-minimum wage setting. So you might ask, well, what is sub-minimum wage? Well, sub-minimum wage means that someone's pay is based on their productivity level. Their productivity is based and measured against someone without a disability. So for example, if someone with a disability is producing just 10% of a productivity level that someone without a disability is producing, then they would only get that 10% of the wage. So people who are currently in this setting, we are encouraging them to have the assessment done and also have service providers complete an assessment every 3 months to ensure that their productivity has changed so that their pay is consistent with their productivity. So our goal is always to have these individuals transition into competitive employment as soon as possible. So it looks like we have, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great questions. Kathy, can you help us out with these?
Sure. Okay, the first question I see in here is from Lourdes. Is the paid internship program open to minors age 16?
It is actually not, unfortunately. It is for anyone over the age of 18, but they can be in school and access the program.
Okay. And the next question is from Dawn. Please explain more about the incentives for employers.
So the incentive for the employers would be, you know, they get the tax incentives for hiring someone with a disability. They also, you know, we cover for the wages up to maximum of $10,400. So they get to obtain someone who is loyal, who is dependable into the workforce. So those are just a few of the incentives for employers.
Okay, thanks. And then this is from Eric. It's a PIP question. Does Alta personnel, that means service coordinators, CIE or managers, personally work with the client and employer on setting this up, or does it have to be set up by a vendor agency?
So unfortunately, the only people at the regional center that has direct contact with the clients are the service coordinators. So the managers and myself don't set up the paid internships directly. However, we do have contracts with our service providers who can set this up for the clients. So if you or anyone who is interested, please reach out to either the service coordinator or the service provider to get this started.
Okay, thanks. And Joe asks, is there an official flyer or information booklet vendors can use for the paid internship program? This would help in getting more employers interested.
Yes, I actually do have a flyer that I can share with Sonia after this presentation to send out to everyone.
Great. And John asks, how can I get more information on employment opportunities for individuals with behavior challenges?
So the Regional Center recently developed 2 programs in this region. One is Blue Heron and the other is Oak and Cedar. The best way would be to connect with a service coordinator to get the process started. Because you know, we have community integrated training programs. We also have supported employment programs. So we have many different services and supports in place. And the best place would be to reach out to the service coordinator and have a discussion so that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and Lourdes, my internet froze for a minute. But anyway, Lourdes asked, is there also, is this also open for those in self-determination? Also, is a payment possible for independent facilitator?
You know, that's a very, very good question. So the paid internship program is available for individuals in the self-determination. The second question, that's something that we would have to look into.
Okay, and Deborah is asking, please tell us more about community integrated training for those with behavior issues.
So we have programs recently developed, as I have mentioned, that works with individuals with some behavioral challenges. So the ratio is smaller, therefore, you know, there's going to be more intensive supports to the individuals, and you know, it's going to be based on the individual's needs. Some services may be in the community, some services may be provided in the home or around the community settings. So that's going to be based on each individual need, but they are community integrated training program, which means that they don't have a site.
Okay, and then Dawn's asking, how can I access more information about support for clients starting their own business?
So you can reach out to the service coordinator, or you can reach out to myself, and I'd be happy to have a discussion with you regarding that. So how the micro enterprise works is that the individual who is interested, let's say they're interested in starting up their own recycling business. So what they would do would be to explore options at the recycling place to identify, what it takes to start up their own business. And as they are interning here, they would be learning ways to start up their own recycling business, and they would be paid for the time that they would be spending at the recycling centers to learn about starting up their own business and what it takes.
Okay, and another comment in here, does a regional center and or vendor provide disability sensitivity training to the employer of record prior or during the PIP starting?
That is a very, very good question. And Steve Reuter, who is also on here, he is going to be hosting a session that's going to be discussing the training to the employers about that. So I think I would like to, for Steve, to talk a little bit about that during his training, if you don't mind.
Okay, and Lynn has a question. Who pays the employer? How does the employer get reimbursed?
That is another good question. So there are different ways where the employer will be reimbursed for the wages. So the first would be they would be working with a service provider who can either reimburse them for the wages, or the service provider would be putting the individual on their payroll. So they don't have to worry about any of the payroll information.
Okay, and that looks like it for the chat questions. Feel free, that's great. You guys had great questions. Feel free to enter any more at any time. But that looks like it's it for right now, Cindy.
Great.
So like Cindy mentioned that they really reach into the community and have their service coordinators and planning teams try to figure out what the need is. And so Cindy asked if we would launch the following poll. And I'm going to do that. And it is a two-part poll. Okay, so if you scroll down, there's question 1 and question 2. Question 1 is for individuals who are getting services from the regional center. We call those individuals self-advocates, or a student or a client or a person with a disability, or just a person. But if people who identified as that earlier would like to answer this question, you can select as many options as you like, and I'm going to read what they are. And then if you look lower down, the second question is meant for family members and care providers to answer. So the first option in the first question is, I have a job already. Okay. The second is, I lost my job temporarily, sorry about the typo, or permanently during COVID-19 pandemic. I need help finding a job. I need help learning work skills on the job. I don't have good transportation to get to a job. I am worried about how it will affect my SSI or public benefits. I don't want to work in a paid job. Or I do other things during the day and I don't want to have a paid job. People are saying they can't hit submit. I'm wondering why. I'm seeing some people are answering. Doesn't let you submit due to only answer 2. There's no applicable.
I'm sorry, what it means is like, it doesn't let you submit because I, as a parent, could only answer to question number 2.
Yeah.
There's no option for like, it is not applicable, is not my case. That's why it's not letting me submit.
Okay. I see people are submitting, so we're just going to do the best we can here. You can't see right now. I can see that people are submitting answers, but you can't see that yet. So do the best you can. We're still learning and figuring all this out together. Lourdes, is it letting you select more than one option?
Yes, I'm able to select multiple
Okay.
options, but as a parent, I was supposed to only answer question 2. In order for me to submit, I had to select one question from one answer from question 1.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Thank you for letting me know.
So if in the next time when you have that situation, put like an answer where like not applicable or as answering from parent, that will like, solve the issue.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so for parents, if you just, it sounds like you need to click one answer on the first question, and then you'll be able to answer the second question. We have more and more people answering now, so I'm going to let it go a couple more seconds here. For the parents, the options are they have a paid job now, they lost their job temporarily or permanently during COVID, they need help finding, another typo, need help finding a job, or help finding the right job, they need help learning on the job, they don't have good transportation to get a job, and that's one we really want to know about. Is transportation a barrier or an issue to getting a job? In some communities it is. I'm worried about how it will affect their SSI, and I don't want them to have a paid job. And the last question is, they do other things during the day and don't want a paid job. Okay, I'm going to end the polling and share the results.
So it looks like for the first question, majority answered that they need help finding a job. Well, 25% said they have a job. That's great. 25% said they need help learning work skills on the job. 8% said they lost their job temporarily or permanently during the COVID-19. 13% said they don't have good transportation. 17% are worried about how it will affect their SSI and public benefits. 17% said they don't want a job, and that's fine too. 17% said they do other things during the day and don't want to have a paid job. They're making their informed choices. That's great. And number 2, 21% said they have a paid job now. They're referring to their loved ones. 21% reported that they lost their job temporarily during the COVID. 54% said they need help finding the right job. And 38% reported they need help learning on the job. 23% said they don't have good transportation. 38% are concerned about SSI and public benefits. 4% said they don't want them to have a paid job, and 25% said they don't want a paid job during the day. So those are all very good questions, and these answers are actually going to be helping us in developing programs and services from the Regional Center. So I thank you for your time in answering the poll questions.
I'm sorry, can I ask, I have this concern. I was working as a disability coordinator for a work source center. I had a lot of the kids, a lot of the young adults that came in, they were working, making like 33 cents or $1. Those were considered like their jobs. And I know that the employer was getting like those type of incentives. So the employer is getting paid thousands of dollars, yet the actual person working gets a couple $100. How is that fair, and how does that mean it's a logical, successful program where the person who has the barriers, who cannot make more money than what allow is allowed by SSI, how is that fair for that person now that they created Call Able, where they're allowed to save money for the future, but yet they're still being paid pennies, yet the employer makes money that gets tax write-off because they have someone with Social Security, somebody with disability. They're entitled to multiple tax breaks. So how is that fair? Or who's loving this, where it's logically making sense from the point of view of a person who has a disability going forward and securing a life?
So Lourdes, you brought up a very good point there regarding the sub-minimum wage. And earlier, you know, I kind of went over about the Work Innovation and Opportunity Act. So the Regional Center is working very closely with some of the service providers who are still providing this setting to transition the clients out of that setting and into a more integrated setting where they are making at least minimum wage. So for the individuals that are still in these settings, we expect that the service providers would continue to do assessments to measure the productivity so that, you know, the productivity continue to increase, and that the clients are receiving the training so that their productivity can eventually increase to where they are making at least minimum wage. And there's always, you know, I encourage the client to speak up and to have a discussion with the service coordinator and the planning team about other settings that they could go into besides the sub-minimum wage settings. And, you know, consistent with the home and community-based services that is going into effect by 2024, you know, some of these settings may not meet the requirements for the home-based community services. So some of these settings may go away, and that's why the Regional Center is working very closely with the service providers in developing trainings and programs and resources to meet the needs of these individuals. You mentioned they are receiving thousands of dollars. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but if you're referring to the CIE incentive payments, that should not be the case, because the CIE incentive payments also have criteria that the service providers and the job needs to meet in order for them to qualify for the incentive payments.
I was referring to, like, they have them as employees, they claim them as a low income, and then a person with the disability, that they get a tax write-off of up to $7,000. Because I had where, like, they sent the forms. Some of the employers were actually recruiting for people with disabilities, and they all had forms where they were getting incentives of thousands of dollars to write them off as them working. So I was like, yes, I'm glad that they're actively looking for people with disabilities, but to the point of getting them pennies per hour and then writing them off for thousands of dollars a year, that's what broke my heart.
That's good information. I would definitely look into that.
Lourdes, I also wanted to add that sometimes we really need to look at job match, because someone who's in a job where you're paid for productivity might not be the best job match for some people, because speed might not be the strength of somebody. And so if you're in a job where you are supposed to be doing productivity, packaging, or some sort of assembly type work, that might not be the best setting for that person, because maybe speed is not their thing, and maybe they could be doing a different job in the community where other strengths that they have can be valued in that job, and it won't be based on their speed. So that's something. No one should ever be forced to be in a setting where they're earning minimum wage. There should be options all over California, and anyone who's not okay with that, as Cindy said, those are being phased out. But if somebody's not happy where they are, they should call their service coordinator and have a planning team meeting, an IPP meeting, and discuss discuss other options that might be available for that person
Mhm.
at
Do we-
any time.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Kathy, are there some more questions that have come in?
Yes, thank you. Dawn had a question. Are there forms involved with employer reimbursement, and how do we get started on the process?
She referring to the paid internship program?
I believe so.
Hi, Dawn, can you clarify if you're referring to the paid internship program?
Yes, I am referring to that paid internship program. I'm interested because I have a business, but also because I'm with Futures Explored, and I know that we are somewhat involved in paid internships, and I just want to know more about it.
Okay, so for anyone who is interested, and I'm talking about service provider who is interested in adding the paid internship program to their program design, they just need to reach out to me and add an addendum. But if you are someone new in the community who is interested in starting up a program, either a vocational program or a day program, and add paid internship to that, you can also submit a letter of intent to the regional center, and we can work with you on the vendorization. Does that answer your question, Dawn? You're on mute.
I was taking notes on what you're saying.
Okay.
It's not real super duper clear, but at the end of this conversation, I'm sure you will be giving us information about how we can reach out to you for more explanation, or to learn more about the programs and so on. Yeah.
Sure, yes. And you can also reach out to me directly as well. So yeah, I can share my contact information after so we can connect.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's great. That's it.
And also, Lori had a question. If a student is 18, still in school, and on a certificate, can they utilize this program, or do they have to use the school-based workability program?
That is a very good question. So anyone over the age of 18 can access the paid internship program because what it covers is the wages and employee-related costs. So this is when it's good to collaborate with the school district if the student needs supports. So the school district can utilize the resources that they have, and the regional center can utilize the resources that we have, such as the wage information, and then we can collaborate so that we can help the student reach the goal. So that it's going to take some planning and some collaboration between the regional center and the school district, and also Department of Rehabilitation, but we can definitely make that work.
And also, that looks like all the questions in the chat, but I see Rick has raised his hand. Rick, did you have to ask a question or say something?
I want to, someone mentioned about the employer making so much money while the employees are making pennies per hour. I think I could clarify what she was saying. At Pride, the president and the former president and CEO was making $500,000 a year. And this wasn't just at Pride. A lot of Goodwill CEOs were making $500,000 a year or more, while the employees with disabilities were making pennies per hour. And I could speak for people with disabilities that work slow, particularly if they have a disability that physically impairs them, where they can't work very fast. It's not so much about focus on the job. It's more about if their disability physically impairs them from working at a fast pace. I've been told when I worked at Goodwill Industries and Pride Industries that I had no choice other than those settings because of the way the economy is, and that those settings were my only choice. Those were the ultimatums, and I was told I had nowhere to go when I worked at. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I was told I had no choice other than those settings when I worked there. I was told that I could not see well enough to work anywhere else, and that it would be dangerous for me to work anywhere else but a segregated setting, and I would be subject to sub-minimum wage for the rest of my life. And or a restricted setting for the rest of my life. And I'm glad that they're finally being phased out. Now, what Pride is doing, even though they're no longer paying sub-minimum wage, is even though they're no longer doing wage evaluations and assessments and time studies, is they're sending people home. So instead of paying you the sub-minimum wage, as they got rid of that certificate, but they're only allowing people to work maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, or 4 days a week instead of working. Yeah.
What?
I can't do these.
Thank you, Rick. I want to go back in the chat. There is a question from John Noriega. Does there need to be a commitment to partner with the Department of Rehabilitation? Cindy, can I?
A commitment from the regional center or a commitment from?
It just says, does there need to be a commitment to partner with the Department of, John, if you're able to ask that question in a little bit more detail, that would be great. Okay. David contacts, it's very important to have a good match. And again, that's always something that the planning team should be looking at. No one should get stuck in a job that's not working for them for any reason. As Cindy mentioned, competitive and integrated employment should always be an option, and it should be the first option given the appropriate supports for that person in the community. There is a follow-up question from Lori. If a student is 18, still in school, and on a certificate, can they utilize this program, or do they have to use their school-based? Did we ask that one already? I think we might have.
Yeah, I think I kind of
Yes.
touched on that a little bit.
Okay. And
So Barbara had a question. If a student who is still in school needed a job coach to be helped with an internship, who covers the job coaching position?
So as I mentioned earlier, it's going to take some collaboration between the regional center, DOR, and the school district. You know, in some cases, the regional center can cover for job coaching if the resource is not available through other means. If it's not available through DOR or it's not available through the school district, there is an exception process that the regional center can explore. But, yeah, that would be a discussion of the planning team.
Kathy, we have a, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, Sharon has a comment. Currently, we are a vendor for TDS, which I believe is Tailored Day Service. And because of the pandemic, we had to limit the services for our clients. How do we provide services at the same time allow CDC guidelines?
So we encourage all service providers that if they are offering in-person services, that they follow the strictest local and state guidelines when it comes to the health and safety of our clients, because that is our main priority at the moment. So we have options through regional center where service providers can explore alternative and remote services. So it's going to be based on each individual needs. Okay.
And then also, Deborah mentions, please comment on Rick Hodgkins' information about pride and goodwill. Are there types of practices still occurring?
So Rick is referring to the work activity programs. So Goodwill is no longer a vendor of the regional center. So they're no longer a work activity program through Goodwill. However, Pride continues to have work activity programs, and we are in the process of working with Pride on transitioning some of the individuals out of the work activity program settings. And we're also in development of a couple of programs.
Okay. And Pamela says, if a student in transition gets a job and needs job coaching services, but the school refuses to provide in-person instruction due to COVID, can they expedite receipt of adult services through the regional center to be able to accept the job and receive job coaching services?
So that would be done through the planning team and also an exception process through the regional center. So I would encourage the service provider or the family to reach out to the service coordinator to get that process started.
And that looks like it in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
Cindy, I'm going to go ahead with the next question, and please feel free to continue to ask questions in the chat and we will answer them. What are some ways that family members, community members, and service providers can help increase jobs for people that they serve or people who are part of their family?
That's a good question. So, you know, Sonia, with that, and this is to everyone too, support could vary, but it should start out by identifying the goal that the person that they serve or love, if it's a family member, to find out what they want to be or do in the future. And the goal could be long-term or short-term, but it should have action items to help the clients get there. And this may take some person-centered planning, such as identifying what's important to or for, have a discussion as part of the discovery process to identify strengths, interests, and needs, and figuring out who's in the individual's circle of support that the individual can reach out to obtaining the employment goal. So, you know, for example, my daughter, who recently turned 16, she may not be someone with a disability, but she also has some challenges that we have to overcome. So her long-term goal in the future is to become a businesswoman. But for now, all she wants to do is to have a job to earn money. So we sat down with her and had a discussion. We did some discovery and found out that, you know, what's important to her is to have a job where she gets to interact with people. We also had a discussion about the kind of job that she wants to do, such as retail, food, or office setting. And we discovered that it's important for her to have a job where she doesn't have to work long hours, because she's still a student and she needs time to get her homework done. So we figured the balance would be that if she had a job in a retail setting where she only has to work until 6 or 7 in the evening, that would leave her some time to still get some of her schoolwork done. And then next, what we did was we discussed supports that she may need, such as transportation. You know, that is one of the biggest needs that some of our clients also experience. And we also had a discussion about, you know, the technicality of the process started, such as the forms that she needs to complete because she is a minor. We had a discussion about the clothes that she may need for work. And so after that, we listed all the important people in her life who can support her in reaching this goal. So we identified her teacher, her friends, mom and dad, of course, and her grandpa are all important people that she would need to support her. So the next day, we reached out to her teacher to let the teacher know that she was interested in getting a job and the process to go about obtaining the forms. Then we taught her how to use Facebook Marketplace to look at some job vacancies. And then we also asked her to reach out to her circle of support, such as friends that she has that are currently working, to see if their workplace has a need for additional workers. So lo and behold, she had a friend that was working at Bed Bath & Beyond, and her friend said, you know what, we are hiring. So we took that lead and she submitted an application. We went over the dress code, the etiquette, interview process. She went to the interview and she did so well during the interview that she got hired on the spot. So as you can see there, you know, support is going to depend based on the person that you serve. But it's important to identify interests, strengths, and barriers that may be in the way of the individual achieving their goal. So for my daughter, her biggest barrier is transportation, as I mentioned, because she doesn't drive. So we need to explore options that is close to our home in case the parents can't take her. So we have to have plan A and plan B. So plan A is for us to take her, plan B is for her to walk there. So, my advice to you and anyone looking for a job is to, keep looking, review any ads or social media platforms for job openings, attend virtual job fairs, keep your resumes up to date. And, when you go to places where you see a long line or where services is not provided like it used to, have a conversation with someone in charge to find out why. Perhaps that business is short-staffed and they could use some additional support.
Cindy, it looks like in the chat, Lynn has a question. How would someone introduce the program to a large company, for example, Home Depot or Costco's?
So we rely on our service providers to explore options for for the clients that we serve in the community. So that, and I myself also have done some outreach to some of the state and local agencies and introducing them to the paid internship program. So the best bet would be for our service providers to go out and as they are doing job development as part of their job, to introduce the program to some of these employers.
Okay.
And also just to remind everyone that we will be focusing on this topic with our presentation on October 20th. We're really talking more about what outreach is happening and has happened with businesses in the community. And that's something that all of the agencies that do help people find jobs, many of them are involved with the Business Advisory Council and coordinate some of their efforts so that we don't have 10 different agencies all contacting Home Depot in the same month. Because that does happen. We have all sorts of agencies in the community serving different populations who are all looking for jobs. So please join us on the 20th to learn more about outreach to businesses in our community.
Okay, and Diane says she's appreciative of the opportunity to receive the connection and community here. And Theodore has a question. Are job developers still used in helping people with disabilities find employment?
The job coaches?
Yeah, job developers.
Yes. I'm not sure if through the regional center or through Department of Rehabilitation, because we do have some connection with Department of Rehabilitation. We collaborate with them on job development. So the regional center has training programs, and when someone is ready for competitive integrated employment, then that's when we connect them with Department of Rehabilitation for job development.
Okay, that looks like it in the chat.
Right.
So Cindy, one of the elephants in the room is COVID and how that has affected people who were working in the community in competitive integrated employment in a regular job in the community, how COVID affected their jobs. Some of them we've heard were able to keep working because their job was essential and other people's jobs were affected. You want to talk about that some more?
Sure. Well, it's very interesting because I hear different things. So for the most part, as we all know, the economy is down. A lot of businesses have shut down or on pause because of COVID. However, I have heard that through this, new opportunities have emerged in response to COVID. So for example, grocery delivery has been on the rise because of people were shelter in place, and many stores have to reduce the number of people inside the stores due to physical distancing. Delivery businesses have also been on the rise due to people ordering online. But as more and more businesses are starting to reopen, it's a good time to check on employers to identify the workforce needs. Just think about how many gyms will need to have their equipment sanitized. The holiday season is also approaching us, and many employers are now ramping up to hire for the holiday shopping season. What about opportunities such as working from home? In fact, I am working with a collaboration with Sacramento Employment Training Agency on a work at home opportunity, focusing on customer service and data entry. So if anyone you know is interested in this type of work, have them reach out to the service coordinator to provide information and to provide that information to me so that I can offer the name to the agency that I am working with. You know, our clients' health and safety is our utmost priority right now. So, you know, if you feel that you are not able to work due to COVID, you can't be exposed to different people, let's explore other options such as the work at home. And if you need accommodations at the workplace due to COVID, reach out to the job coach, reach out to the SC so that we can provide support for you to advocate for the accommodations that you need.
Cindy, there's a comment in the chat from David. Seasonal employment is only temporary. And then Lourdes has a question. What happens when they are in transition between units? Do you wait until that is done or just request it?
I would say to have the discussion as early as possible because any information that is put on the individual program plan can be carried over to the next service coordinator.
Okay.
And David, just to respond to your comment about seasonal employment being only temporary, that's true, but it's also sometimes a really good opportunity to try something out, to get some experience so that that can be on your resume. If you worked through a holiday season in one job, and might help you learn what kinds of things you like and don't like. And so, you know, any work is a good experience. Most of us don't end up in our permanent job by starting in that job, right? Most of us have been through many, many different jobs. So even though it is temporary, it's still a great opportunity to learn about your skills, increase your skills. Yeah, so don't discount that.
Sure, and sometimes seasonal employment can turn into permanent employment as well. So it's really going to depend, yeah, on the need of the employer. But definitely a good way to get some experience under the belt.
Yes, and Heidi added, also in some cases, temporary positions can turn into permanent ones. Plus, I'd like to add, sometimes people just want to work temporarily. That's the kind of job they want. They want a seasonal job because they want the breaks in between to go to school or do what have you. So sometimes those work for people. And then Pamela has a question. Can you speak to the difference in services between DOR and Alta? What are the criteria for Alta to refer to DOR rather than funding employment services directly? And what employment services does Alta fund at DOR and DOR doesn't?
So that is a very good question. So the regional center has, you know, regulation in place to where we have to utilize community supports as the first option. Whenever the community support is not available, that's when the regional center can provide the funding. So in this case, DOR is an agency that is in community that serves anyone with or without a disability to find employment. So we would first explore options through Department of Rehabilitation. However, if an individual goes through the process and is determined not eligible for DOR services, that's when the regional center would explore options through our agency. So we would try to collaborate with DOR as much as possible when someone is ready for employment. But most of the time, the regional center provides and offers services to help train someone so that they can be ready for competitive employment.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm going to launch a poll right now, and then right after that, we want to share some statistics about employment with Alta Regional Center. So let's do the poll first. Okay, can you see those questions,
Mhm.
Cindy? Okay. Did you learn something about employment supports through the Regional Center? The options are yes or no. And are you satisfied with this training? And the options are yes or no. We will wait just a few minutes. Okay, I think most of you have contributed. I'm going to end the polling and share the results. Can you see that, Cindy? Can you go ahead and read the...
Yes, I can see that. So the
Oops.
first question is, did you learn something about employment supports through the Regional Center? 96% of you have reported yes. 4% of you have reported no. The second question is, are you satisfied with this training? 94% reported yes and 6% reported no. So with trainings that the Regional Center provides to the community, we would want to have 100% satisfaction. So anytime when you are unhappy or unclear about something, please feel free to reach out to myself. That way we can, try to fix the issue so that, we can get that 100% satisfaction survey.
Okay, and then there was one other comment in the chat from Rick. What if the Department of Rehab says that they cannot help the client and the client belongs in a work activity program instead?
So the Department of Rehabilitation has a process of how they determine someone eligible for services. They cannot dictate that someone needs to be in a work activity program. They can only assess to see if someone is eligible to receive services. Now, if they determine that someone is not eligible for services through Department of Rehabilitation, that is when we would expect that they would reach out to the service coordinator so that a discussion can be made with the individual and options can be explored through the Regional Center.
Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now, and then we'll get to any more questions. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Cindy.
Yes. So here is some resources and information regarding the employment data dashboard. So the first one is actually employment information on State Council's website. The information below that is information from the Regional Center based on fiscal year 2019 and 20. So this is the latest information that we have. So we have the number of individuals participating in different settings. In paid internship program, we currently have 74 individuals in a paid internship program. We have 96 individuals in competitive integrated employment settings. We have 351 in work activity programs. Currently, we have 686 in supported employment groups, and we have 378 individuals in supported employment individual placements. So the supported employment individual placement is where we would want all of our clients to be in. So the goal is to increase the number there and decrease the number of individuals in work activity programs. Some of our supported employment groups are, they meet the definition for competitive integrated employment. So, but for the settings that do not, that's when we would like to work with the service providers to transition the individuals so that, their job can meet the criteria for competitive integrated employment.
Okay. Thank you. That's interesting. Sharon has a comment in the chat. How long does a client have to be with DOR until the vendor can take over? They've had a client that's been with DOR, Department of Rehab, over 2 years and is still without a job?
So the collaboration that we have with Department of Rehabilitation is once someone is completed going through the process and they reach the stabilization level, which is at about 30%, where they can work without receiving new supports, that's when they would transition back to the regional center. Now, if they have been with DOR for a long time and you know, the agency that they are working with is not helping them reaching their goals, you know, they are more than welcome to connect with DOR and express their concerns to DOR so that maybe another service provider can be put in place, and also to review the goals to see if it's still consistent and it meets their needs. But they should be having a discussion with the DOR counselor if they have any concerns.
Okay. And David has a question. If DOR, the Department of Rehab, is not willing to pay for job coaching for seasonal employment, does Alta help out?
You know, that really depends. So seasonal employment, is that going to turn into permanent hire? You never know. So I think that's a good question to ask DOR. If the seasonal placement is going to turn into permanent hire, that's something that should be explored first. But if not, then yes, always reach out to the service coordinator and have a discussion.
Okay, and Pamela asks, how many providers are there in Alta's area offering competitive employment, competitive integrated employment services?
So we currently have at least 10 service providers that have added or have revamped their program design to add competitive integrated employment. And we are also in the process of developing a few more as we speak. So I would say that by year end, we should have at least 15.
Okay, and Megan has a question. Are those competitive integrated employment numbers based on incentives provided to vendors within the time frame provided?
So the numbers that I just shared with you, Sonia, if you could go back to the screen. So let me explain that a little bit. So for the fiscal years 19 and 20, we have 74 individuals. This does not account for all the individuals that have participated in the paid internship program since the implementation of the paid internship program back in 2016. Same with CIE. So just for the fiscal year of 19 and 20, we have 96 individuals. But altogether, we have a lot more. And work activity programs, we currently have 351. However, the number might be lower now because the work activity programs are, some of them are closed, still closed.
Okay, Megan, was that, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay, great. And that looks like that's it in the chat.
So it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any other questions? Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my information, my contact information in the chat for anyone who's interested in reaching out to me. And please note that I am currently working from home. The best way to get a hold of me would be via email. And I will be providing my contact information here.
So we know there are people on the call from all over the state. So since you don't, I'm sure you don't want them all contacting you, Cindy. Are there employment specialists in all of the regional centers?
Yes, I forgot to mention every regional center should have at least one employment specialist covering employment services. Sometimes, you know, they're lucky to have a director, a supervisor, and also an employment specialist. So they may have a team, but for specific region of Alta, it's only myself.
And the main point of contact for each individual person getting services from the regional center and family members is the service coordinator.
Correct.
And they can always reach out to their employment specialist if there are questions that the service coordinator can't answer.
Correct. That would be the best contact from the regional center right there.
And just to remind people that some programs are going through some changes right now. We've had trainings a couple weeks ago, and we'll have some more next week with Catherine Weston, who I think might be on this call, about the home and community-based services and other legislation that affects services. Things are always changing. So even if you were told that there wasn't a certain option in your region a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, reach out again to your service coordinator. Like Cindy mentioned, there might be 5 new programs in Alta's area with it by the end of the year. So things are always changing. And so, I think I would just say, let's try to move forward and look forward to what new services there are and what options there are and what you or your family member wants, and reach out again and look at what options there are again. And of course, it always goes back to getting to know the individual through person-centered planning and really trying things, failing at things, deciding you don't like something, trying something and you like it. We all have to learn and be given opportunities to try things.
And another question popped up in the chat from Sharon. Who decides when, if DOR is not meeting the client's goals, and when can the vendors take over with the job hunt?
So DOR have their own process of identifying when someone is eligible for their services. And they also have counselors that work directly with the service providers and the clients. So if someone is with Department of Rehabilitation, we would expect that the planning team through DOR has discussions about any concerns or questions that they may have or any issues that may come up as a result of the individual looking for a job. So I would encourage anyone, if the individual is already with Department of Rehabilitation, to connect with a counselor if they have any questions or concerns.
Cindy, I don't think your information showed up. Did you press enter?
Oh, you know what? That's because for some reason it defaulted to me just reaching out.
Oh, a private message to yourself.
No, actually to Dawn.
Oh, okay.
I do apologize.
And there was also a private question in there about could we share out the schedule for the rest of the month? Absolutely. I have all of your email addresses because you did register, so thank you for that. I will send out tomorrow, I will send out a link to the recording of this training as well as the flyer, as well as including contact information for Cindy. And any other handouts, I think Cindy mentioned one that we can include as well. So look for that tomorrow. And there is Cindy's contact information. We have a couple minutes. If there are any other questions, feel free to take yourself off mute and just ask the question if you'd like. Lauren, did you want to say something?
Yeah, like how would I get a job if I don't have one?
That's a great question.
How would I get a job like if I don't have one?
So Lauren, I would recommend for you to have a discussion, call for a planning team meeting, and express your interest to your service coordinator. And during your meeting, you can invite anyone whom you think is going to help you achieve your goal. So you can have your family, your friends, or anyone in your circle of support be at this meeting. And like I mentioned earlier about the process that I went through with my daughter to help identify supports and needs that my daughter needs in order for her to get a job, So it's important to have a discussion and identify the needs and what's important to and important for you.
Lauren, do you have a service coordinator
It's
at the
Rhonda
regional center?
Davenport.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable reaching out to Wanda?
Yeah, I just have to get her contact information from Rhonda is the one that sent us the thing.
Okay.
So I don't know how to get like a hold of her.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's somebody there who can maybe help you out. What city do you live in? Are you in the
Loomis?
in Loomis? Okay. So if you need help, and I'm just going to type in the chat box here, the regional center's main number, you can always just call and let them know your name, and they can connect you with your service coordinator. Is that correct, Cindy?
Yes.
And yeah, so you can always call that number, just tell them your name. Sometimes they ask for your date of birth, and then they can look up who your service coordinator is. And you can always ask for a meeting or just a conversation over the phone or by email, because right now they're not doing so many in-person meetings. But you could have a meeting and talk about your interest in getting a job and what kind of programs there might be that can help you to explore that. Even if you just had a IPP, an individual program plan meeting a couple months ago, maybe you didn't bring this up then, you can still call your service coordinator and talk about it and have another meeting. So you don't have to wait until next year. You can do it anytime you think of something new you want to do. You can just reach out to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren, my information is also on here. So if you need me to give you direct contact for Rhonda, just email me or call me.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Great question. And for everyone else who's left, if you have any comments about how we can make these trainings better, what you liked about the training, what you didn't like, questions you still have, I'm just gonna leave the chat open for a couple more minutes. Please feel free to put any comments in there. We have 3 more this month, and we welcome your input any way we can make them better.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing many of you next Tuesday. Hi, Dennis. Glad you were on the call. How you doing, Steve?
Well, I actually just sent Cindy a message. Nice job.
Great, and we will include your flyer in my email I send out tomorrow as well.
Thank you, Steve. Well, looks like we do. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Sonia. So I was going to use a PowerPoint next week. Is that okay? Have you used them with the group?
That is okay. Kathy, are you the moderator next week?
Yes.
Okay. Could you and Steve communicate about that? Yeah, absolutely. We're just going to leave it. Go ahead.
So if it's okay, if I could be a co-host, when I do the PowerPoint, I can enable the captioning on it so that it's captioned as well.
Okay, let's talk about that offline. We're still recording here. I'm just going to wait a minute for a couple more comments. Maybe a PowerPoint would be helpful.
A comment or a question in the chat from Jen Sage. I think she's still on. So I just want to quickly answer that question. So her question is, to clarify, as a member of a 16-year-old, we should reach out first to our regional coordinator to discuss employment supports and programs, and then do DOR intake after. So the way to go about this would be, because of a 16-year-old is still in school, DOR has student services that they offer through the school districts that should first be explored. And then once that option is explored, when the student is ready to transition to vocational services, then we can also explore that options either through DOR or through the regional center. So I hope that answered your question, Jen, if you're still on the line.
And Jen, if you are still on the line, the next chat will include DOR, the Department of Rehab, Student Services.
Yes.
Jose will be talking about that.
Yes.
And Jen says thank you. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Stay safe. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.